Welcome to my Accent is No Accident podcast. I am your host, Maritza Perez, and we are here today with a beautiful couple who are guiding others to unlock their full potential. They are Gail and Gregory Hoag, a rare fusion of consciousness and love. With over 4 decades of dedicated expertise in the realm of sacred geometry, they have pioneered groundbreaking technologies that have transformed the lives of tens of thousands across the globe. With their teaching tools, they have harnessed the power of divine archetypes to amplify higher dimensional energies and elevate human experience, catalyzing personal and spiritual growth. Discover the profound wisdom and innovation that have made Gail and Gregory esteemed leaders in the world of sacred geometry. Through their long dedication, they continue to inspire and guide countless individuals towards a path of higher consciousness, well-being, and profound connection. Welcome, Gail and Greg. It is an honor and make me very happy to have you as a guest today on my podcast.
Thank you, Maritza. It's wonderful to be here with you.
It is. So thank you for having us.
I love it. And I start with a interesting question that is of my podcast, and I ask everyone, uh, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
Oh,
Not an accident or an accident.
Not an accident.
that that is a very interesting question. And I have to honestly say I haven't prepared a thing for it, so I'm just going to respond. Um, I would say that my accent is a culmination of who I am. I actually in Baltimore on the East Coast, and I thought, I don't like the way that accent sounds. So when I moved west to Colorado, I was actually more aware of the way that I said things and and I wanted to be more inclusive. I wanted to not be so much just a representation from where I came from, but instead I wanted my voice to be um, aligned with who I really am. You know, we change a lot as we grow, and who we were when we first came into our lives is not the same as we are now. And so the imprint of voice, accent, the way that we say things, the way we present ourselves, I believe should really be a culmination of who we are at all the levels of who we are. And that includes the higher levels so that our voice is allowing to come through in this life, in this personality.
I love that answer. Thank you. I love it. How about you, Gregory?
Good. I take it not just in the way I sound, but every aspect of my beingness is unique to me, and each one of us has that aspect of uniqueness to really bring into the world and share with other people. And what we do with Sacred Tree, we talk about archetypes, and that is what is the overriding pattern that creation uses to display all of this out here. And so the fun thing about this question is that on so many levels, as human beings, we are governed by these archetypes. What's going on inside our body? What's going on inside our feelings? What's going on inside our thoughts? It's not so different from your feelings, your thoughts, and all 8 billion feeling, thinking beings on this planet. And yet, each one, like a snowflake, is totally unique. And yet, also, like the snowflake, when it melts, it goes back into the same ocean of water that each one of us dissolves into when we leave our physical life. And we all come from that same ocean of love and express it differently. And that's what I love about your question and about what you're sharing with people.
Thank you so much. I love your answers. Those are very insightful, and especially because what you guys have accomplished throughout your lives. Uh, you have a wider spectrum of how you are and you became to be who you are. And you express it through your daily work and communication with everybody. So I love this. And I want to start with us, continue with asking so that those people that don't know what sacred geometry is will have a wider understanding or as somehow an understanding of what it is. So what is sacred?
Which one?
Okay, well, you know what? I'll just address it briefly, and then Gregory is going to go down the rabbit hole with you about it. And sacred geometry is actually something that tells us the foundation of creation of our universe, because we believe that everything is energy, pure energy, and somehow it's found its way into physical form in our bodies, in our surroundings, in this beautiful world then. But how is it the way that it is? Well, sacred geometry addresses that question, that there are certain patterns and rhythms and ways that creation develops itself. There are ways that our body is formed that give us certain relationships and ratios. And and back to your original question and what Gregory was talking about with the snowflake, it's taking some fundamental qualities that then can become so diverse and find life in so many different ways. So that there are so many different roses, but each rose is a variation on that same theme. And yet, sacred geometry addresses how, at the corner of everything, the cornerstone of everything, there is a sameness within that uniqueness. And so, with that, I'm going to let Gregory take it and go into a little bit more or a lot more specifics.
I don't know if I need to go into more specifics because that was really pretty well said. It's the way use works with patterns, rhythms, cycles, even time. So time follows particular patterns and rhythms. And some of the ancients, when I say ancients, Sumerians and Egyptians, the Mayans, they worked with time cycles over 26,000 years long. And what's happening today in our lives is we've kind of ignored the way nature does things, the way the sun was created, the moon and the earth, as far as the patterns and their relationships to each other, and the relationships of these celestial bodies to certain geometries. And what we've done is simply in our new book point out how all these relationships exist and explain that by understanding sacred geometry, we can understand how energy moves, how energy flows, because it's through resonance. And there are certain aspects of light, certain aspects of the sun, where the light's coming from the sun, generated by the sun, that are built around certain um, distances and shapes and geometries. And when we bring those geometries into our life, it's like going out into nature and sitting next to a stream. You feel everything is just so easy to relax into because it's natural. It's the vibration of what's real. And what's happened to all of us is we've moved into cities, we have computers and cell phones going on around us that generate certain frequencies. And then we have certain mental things that are stresses that disconnect us and fears. And so all these things in our lives keep us from feeling what's real, what's natural. And so that's where sacred geometry can play a really big role in our lives by bringing in certain shapes and forms and frequencies that when we have them in our environment, they vibrate with what's real, and then we start vibrating with what's real. And that can change the way we think, the way we feel, our health, our understanding, our intuition, all the things that can operate optimally within a human being happen when we're in an environment that's supportive of being who we truly are.
It's amazing. I love it. And then, so basically, is a way to find our true beginnings, true selves.
And be present with it. You find it, and then, you know, that's the amazing thing that I think we come to again and again, which is the only place where we can really be at our optimal best is right now in the present, in the present, in the present. So much of what the mind does is it rehashes and chews over the past, what didn't work, that person that hurt me, or when I wasn't feeling my best, or we worry about what's going to happen. When we can be present and when we're surrounded by an energy that allows us to feel good and feel present, then we are empowered. And that's what's really exciting about everything we're talking about.
Yes. So I see the shapes that you have there, and I would like to know, how do you get to how did you get to build them? Because you guys, that's the beauty of one of the things that you do. You build these shapes. How do you get to build a
Well, I'm going to just say that we've been doing this, Maritza, together for over 38 years. And it was really interesting that for me, I had, as an artist, I had really been looking deeply into the universe, into just walking around and looking at the landscape, the flowers, the wanting to penetrate it more and more. And one of the places that I ended up going in wanting to dive deeper into it was the work of R. Buckminster Fuller, who was a brilliant genius. One of the things he's known for is the geodesic dome, and he talked about these tetrahedrons, which is a three-dimensional triangle, basically. And Gregory and I met one day in Colorado where we were in a garage actually, and he was carrying around this box of these geometries that he had made. And I looked at them and there were all these tetrahedrons in them, and I must know the work of Buckminster Fuller. And he didn't. He was making these objects and he didn't quite know what they were yet. And I put my hand over it because I'm a very intuitive person. And I put my hand over them and I was feeling the energy coming off of it. And I said, oh my gosh, these things have an energetic component. And that kind of led us to one, create a relationship. And where I had this inner knowing that we had work to do. I didn't know that we were going to have a marriage and all that wonderful stuff. And I realized that he was getting all this information intuitively through meditation, through all the work that he had done spiritually. And he had opened himself to kind of be a channel for this information. And together, we've spent many, many years really going into this and learning what it is. Because I think the inspirations oftentimes are coming from, that higher self. And then if we want to really become more practical and go deeper into it, then we're on a journey to find out what all this is. So that's kind of like a little bit of background to how this got started.
It was amazing when we met, and I'd gone through a lot of energetic shifts called Kundalini, where energy was flowing through my body, and it flowed so strongly that holes were burned in my hands and my feet just by the flow of energy going through my body. And that opened me up to seeing these different geometries. But something like this is like, I'm going to show you some pictures from our book, and it's going to relate to what we're seeing now. So here you have some of these common spirals that we see with the sunflower, the nautilus shell, and this is happening because these organic elements, I mean, these plants and even the galaxies themselves are following particular patterns. And the human being follows these same patterns. So you see when you have from the shoulder to the elbow and the elbow to the end of the hand, that's that AB. All these ABs, when you divide the B by the A, you get this particular number, which is called the phi ratio, which is what shows up in all of these spirals in these particular plants. So back to the form that we were talking about, let me see if I can, if you take literally the diameter of the moon and the diameter of the earth, you add it together, you have the same number of degrees as geometry that I'm holding. So that plus the number of degrees in an icosahedron, this other dodecahedron, these are two of the platonic solids, that also creates this geometry. And these two always work together in this phi ratio. So you see what's happening is the phi ratio is embedded in here. The sun, well, the sun and the moon do, but actually the earth diameter and the moon diameter added together create this geometry, and they also are working with that phi ratio. that seed of life, the pattern that governs our bodies. So even so, all these bodies speak different languages and sound different, but all built with the same ratios, the same patterns, a pattern governed by the moon and the earth. I keep wanting to say sun because the sun and the moon create other patterns. I mean, it's like that's what goes on in this reality. All these different patterns that when we bring this geometry into our lives and start spinning it, what starts happening is we start falling into resonance with the earth and the moon and the phi ray, the seed of life, the seed of all creation.
The
And that's
creation
going,
eye.
Mhm.
That is beautiful.
and then you can start to feel that energy because a seed tuning fork is just solid being there, maybe sitting on the shelf. But when someone starts playing a C tone and it's played loud enough, close enough, what happens is that tuning fork starts vibrating the same rhythm that is going on with the C tone. And that's because it was created to be related to that C. And we are created to be related to all of creation. And we've just forgotten. We've stepped out of that. And what we've stepped into is a much tinier, smaller version of who we have the potential to be.
And it is amazing because that's as you were explaining before you mentioned creation, that's what I was thinking is this is creation. This is
Exactly.
how we probably were created. That's what I was thinking.
And
Um,
the sun and the moon and all of it, it's like these patterns existed before the creation, because creation follows the patterns that are always there everywhere in the universe.
which by by definition we are all created by the same image, and that's the meaning of this.
Exactly.
We
And
are
you
all
know,
the same.
one of the I always like to look at things as like issues and opportunities, you know, crisis and challenges and opportunities, because everything is revealing something to us. And there are so many things that disconnect us in our world. We're living in a time that I believe we're moving into a whole nother advancement of our awareness, of our consciousness, where we can reconnect to who we are. We can reconnect to each other, to the beautiful environment that we have here, to the celestial forces. And we're not there now. However, I see so many instances that indicate that we are on the path to that. Just that so many more people are interested in the kinds of messages that we're putting out. That's very, very encouraging. And so, yeah, we're disconnected in a lot of ways. However, one of the things that has excited us about our work all these years is that the not only the message that we have, but the tools that we create actually support people to establish a greater connection to creation, to all that is, to each other. And so, it's amazing, Maritza, to see people who, might wear like a pendant, like what I'm wearing and what Gregory's wearing. And then their life starts to change. Serendipitous experiences seem to show up. Their relationships just seem to get better. That job that they wanted to get appears. And I believe that that's the natural flow, because you look at the universe and the universe works that way. And when we interrupt the flow, when we don't enable this to happen the way it's, designed to do, then it's not working so well. However, I really believe as we're opening ourselves up to so many different things and the influences are changing the outcome. And so we can be more present with who we really are and allow universal patterns to speak through us in what we create in our lives, in our health, and our wonderful relationships to each other.
I love this. So, what a better example to show us that we all are the same and the differences are just basically in our minds, that they're not real. We're not all part of the one same universe. We're part of the same uh, universe, the same being, and without what you were just saying, without one another, there will be a tremendous change and a tremendous impact in each other's lives and the flow of how everything works. And I love the work that you guys do. One of the things that I love is the story of how you met, which you mentioned it, and what you both were doing, and how things were just coincide to the one day that you met. And then you started working, but you were not planning to have a relationship, where you were just working. Can you tell us a little bit of that story? I love to hear that story.
Oh gosh. Well, let's see. Well, for me, I had moved to Colorado a couple of years before, and you know, I'll be honest, I'd gotten to a point where I'd been single for several years, and I got to a point where I just really felt like I'm ready for a relationship. I'm really ready to be with somebody again in a way that is supportive on many, many levels. And so it was around New Year's, and I wrote it all down and wrote down, what that would be like and what the relationship would be like and how I would feel in that relationship. And then I just kind of let it go. Um, and it was about maybe 5 months later when we met. And I think in a way it was interesting because my intuition, what was kind of triggering my thoughts was, oh, there's something really important here. I mean, I just kind of felt that connection. And I think that probably shown to me in a way that I wasn't shown that this is the man I was going to marry, because who knows, I might have at that point messed it up, So instead, we were kind of coming around the back door and looking at purpose, what work we had together, so that we could begin to get to know each other. And that was, we've been together now for over 38 years. So universe plays wonderful games for us. And I think that we both met up at the perfect time, where our lives sort of us, together in those crosshairs, so that we could really deal with the soul connection that we have. And soul relationships are so different than just, relationships of like, oh, well, this is really fun and whatever. But soul relationships are pretty amazing. And so Gregory, he had a different experience that he can share
Let's
about.
hear his POV.
Okay. Well, as she said, I had my box of geometries that I was making and was just bringing them in and building them. And the garage that she was talking about, that was next to a house that I had owned. I sold the house And the new owner that bought it from me was letting her paint in the house, do her large paintings. So I was in the garage checking on a table that I'd left in the garage, and she had all her paintings leaning up that table. And so the interesting thing for me was she mentioned Bucky Fuller, and she, with another friend, was going to be channeling Bucky Fuller that in another evening or so and invited me. So in that channeling, Buckminster Fuller, the inventor of the geodesic dome, came through and started commenting on the geometries that I was building and saying how powerful some of them were, and you had to be careful in some ways. But something else that was really interesting with the way universe tries to bring us together all the time. After a week or so of being with Gail, I pulled out my wallet and I only had one card, business card in my wallet. And it was something that someone had given to me a year ago before that. And it was a card that she had made for her. It was a handmade card with a picture glued on the back of one of her paintings. And I had written on it meditation, color, and something else that, you're supposed to meet this woman. And I just never got around to it until we were together. And I said, "Oh, this is you.
Oh my
Universe did it.
God.
If it doesn't work this way, universe finds another way and another way." And so I think the lesson for me is to just be open, just be allowing. When you do the work to interact with universe and source and spirit and creation, when you're working with that, the most important part after you've done the work is to relax and allow. Be open to allowing universe to you. Because if you keep going on in your own path, trying to figure out how everything's supposed to happen, and I'm going to do it my way because I'm strong and I don't need anyone's help, you're going to miss the gifts that come. And so this was a big gift that changed both of our lives.
dramatically.
So, and this is beautiful because um, when you listen to many of couples' stories or best friends' stories, they have some kind of story about we were supposed to meet here and we were at the same place, but we never met. Um, I love the part when you are saying that you the universe works in a way that it's going to try it again and again if it is really meant for you.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that prevents us from getting these help from the universe, from God, for those who are religious, is by placing fear before.
Mm.
And I been reading through some of the things that you do and listening to your programs, and then you say fear is something that we create because we don't know. Would you like to talk about these a little?
That is such an important thing for us all to recognize that fear is really, fear is not real. It's something that onto in our minds with our emotions, and it attacks our bodies in ways that can really destroy health. And when it gets down to it, what's real is love. Fear is the separation. Fear is the inability. It it's the inability to allow the love to come to us. And so it's an obstacle. And there is so much pervasive fear out there. People think it's so real. But honestly, what's real is what we've been speaking to. What's real is the love. What's real is the pattern of the universe. That's what's real. And that's what we can really depend upon. The fear can dissolve when you stop thinking about it. But the beautiful way that universe creates doesn't dissolve. That's there. That's fundamental. So, we talk a lot about disconnection, that disconnected from who they are, from those divine connections. And when we work on restoring those connections again, then that flow of love, it fills us back up again. And that's what I really want to say to people, to focus on that. The fear is something that is really not real. It's an illusion. And so do you want to live in illusion, or do you want to live in what's there, what is planted into the way that creation happens? It's really consciousness, and consciousness is a container for love. And so that's our job now as human beings, to work with that, to restore that into the fabric of our bodies, our lives, and on this planet.
And another putting it into words is that each of us has a human body, obviously. And when the body comes in, like every other physical being, every other, like when I say physical being, I mean every animal, everything that's born into this reality wants to survive. And so where fear comes from is that place within each of us that is striving for survival, to avoid what's going to harm us, to avoid going to create pain. And the thing is that that's what comes out of our physical body. And all the other negative emotions are aspects of that fear. So the sadness, the guilt, the anger, all those emotions are just aspects of fear. The body doesn't really generate the love. It can experience love, but where love comes from is higher self. That's where soul connecting to us puts love into us, often to show us we're on the right track. When you're attracted to someone or something, that's your guidance, angels, your soul saying, all right, go for it. This is something that's really meant for you. And so I have a slide that can kind of show this really briefly, how you can see that at the top, soul, source, energy flows through us. We're like an iceberg where 90% of us is hidden. Only that little bit that sticks above the water is what we see in an iceberg. And that's true for us as human beings. The majority of us lives on unseen levels, where our emotions hang out, where our thoughts hang out, where our soul exists. And so energy flowing from soul all the way through the iceberg, like the metaphor on the right from the boat down to the deep sea diver, that's air that's keeping that human down there alive coming from that boat. Without source, without soul, we wouldn't exist. All of that is wanting to flow through. And that's where the love gets into our body. And yet, what's going on with this image, you can see that the electromagnetic pollution, the computers, the cell phones, the stress that goes on in our lives, trying to make things work when they don't seem to be working, our judgments, our beliefs, the things going on with our negative emotions, that fear, that all puts a kink in that line that wants to flow into our bodies from soul. And the toxins that we're producing today, that also blocks it. And that's why we get sick when there are too many toxins. We get sick, but it's not just the toxin itself is bad, but it's separating us from life flow, from life source, from that part of us that is really meant to sustain us and give us our love and our intelligence. You know, when you talk about speaking from the wisdom of the heart, that's higher self coming through the portal, the doorway of the heart, and flooding our mind with what the understanding needs to be. That's how I built all the things. It's just I could see them inside my because universe knew that was something it could share with me.
I want to share something because you brought up some things that people could be asking. I want to understand this better. And one of the things, fear, what Gregory said, generates things like sadness, pain, things like that. And it's not to say that those things aren't something that are aspects that we are experiencing. When something is wrong with our body, we'll feel pain. When we have the loss of someone or a relationship or something that we really care for, we feel sadness. Those are very real generations of emotions. And so we're not saying that that's not real, but let's look at it a different way. So if you have pain in your body is saying, pay attention. There's something going on here that needs support. And you know what it needs? It needs love. And I can personally tell you that I had a very serious fall accident in July that um, left me in a place where I feel pain. And what I've trained myself to do is in that pain, not to numb it, but instead to say, I am bringing the love into my body because it's the divine creation. It's the love that heals. And so if we can be courageous in that, if we can be courageous with the pain or the sadness that we feel when there's a loss of a relationship or something that's been very important to me, not to deny it, not to say, well, I'll try to meditate that away. No, but instead, what is it that fills me again? What can I expand the love of who I really am because of that experience, because of the love that I may have had with that person? So it's a different way of looking at it, Maritza, that I think gives people a way to restore their lives and to reconnect with their, all of who they are, as opposed to um, the separation that seems to often be the common way that people experience those hardships.
And this is very insightful because what you just said about losing a relationship instead of trying to take the pain away, the grief away, and just to acknowledge, be grateful, and understanding that this might just be part of my path and something else better or something is coming next. Maybe the relationship will meet again because sometimes that happens, meet again in the future. I love these, and especially because you guys are not experimenting, but are experiencing this on a day-to-day basis, and you are an example of it. And your relationship, you called your relationship a conscious soul relationship, and I love it because it is more than just the platonic relationship, a consciousness of I'm gonna be with this person forever.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer in relationships. Um, one of the things that I see is that what the work that Greg and I do, neither of us could have done it individually. He may have been getting all of these wonderful images and being able to actually physically make them, but it was our relationship that brought it into a different context, that brought consciousness to it, that brought awareness. And from there, the ability to be able to reach out and do something so much more with it. And, I feel that the more that we can break down those barriers of the ego wanting to say, well, I'm the one who's created this. I know, the best for everything, and I'll tell everybody what to do. But when we open ourselves up to embrace fully the others, we learn so much. And going back to the essence of this podcast, it's the diversity that brings the beauty. It brings the all of the different facets that make it as precious as it is. So our ability to be able to reach out and be with others, but not in a way of manipulation, but in a way of embracing the wholeness of each other. And that's when I talk about soul-centered relationships, it really is embracing the allness of who we are, and so inspiring because we grow. We are giving ourselves permission to be more than who we may have thought we are. And that's the beauty of consciousness.
Amazing. So we have mentioned your book probably 7, 8 times. Let's talk about your book, the upcoming book.
Well, what we were just talking about with relationship, it's amazing part of the fact that we wrote the book as late in our experience together as we did, because it has taken a lot of time to be able to write something and then correct each other's work and write and blend. And I mean, that's quite a process. We were going back and forth one day when our daughter in her 20s was here and was saying, I could never write a book with another person. That's an interesting dynamic in and of itself, to work on these projects and be able to let go of this is mine, and you can't. At any rate, it's been a powerful
It
experience
has. It has.
of
Yeah.
Not without its
creating it.
hiccups.
And the forms are much easier because we'll do things together where I'll show Gail, something that after she got out of the hospital that she's been using, and we'll introduce it to people next year. It's a beautiful form, but it was something that um, when I first showed it to her, and I thought I worked it all out, and she was going, no, it doesn't look right. It's too much. It just, and I always trust that. It's like there was one thing we were building once, and Gail would say, "Well, I think it's complete. It's done," and I kept hearing, "No, this one part, it's not done. It needs something." And so we went, do we need to add this? Do we need to glue on this, or add this gem, or add this thing or that? Finally, we discovered we needed to put a hole in it. We just drilled a hole in this cup so the energy could flow through, and that's what it needed. But that's how universe plays with us. It
Yes.
lets us do these things just the way, when we work together, when we create teams together as human beings, you want to bring the creativity out of everyone. So you don't go to your 3 or 5 year old and say, hey, I know how to color, so let me do your coloring book for you. It's like universe does that with us. It lets us make mistakes. It allows us to discover things. It allows our ego, the ego that gets a bad rap, that part of the iceberg that is at the tip, that figures this reality that I bump into, this is all that exists. So I'm going to control all that exists. The ego has to dissolve a bit when the bigger part of you starts coming to play. But we can't get rid of it. It's what's made us. It's my personality. It's this character that sometimes does really fun things and sometimes does things that we don't want to talk about, that people say ugly names about because I mess up. But, when the ego has something to do, and that's what higher self, what soul does, it lets us play and discover and do these things and get engaged and talk to you right now and flip my hands up and down and smile and communicate. I mean, this is all coming through this character that we've built, and we have to be so loving and open to each one of our characters and realize there is a bigger being behind Maritza, a being that's watching over her, that really loves and cares for her, and our beings can touch and our personalities can play. We can dance together. Like, what do you like? Oh, you like to talk about things. Well, I like to talk about things too. So here we are playing with our characters.
What a
So,
beautiful way. Yes.
so the book, I want to, before we finish up here, I don't want to lose track of that. The book is, it's really something that even though we did most of the writing within a year, it's the culmination of many, many years of our work. And it's filled with beautiful illustrations in it. It's available in digital downloads with color illustrations and in our printed book with black and white. And there's both a combination of in-depth expose of how these patterns work and getting into the numbers and the rhythms and all kinds of things that can get a bit technical, but there's illustrations that really help flesh it out. And we also talk about the beginning of the book, we talk about consciousness. What is consciousness and what blocks consciousness? So we start out with that as the way that we enter into this conversation with people about sacred geometry. And then from there, we address some of the things we've talked about and give people a sense of how they can more fully reconnect in their lives and experience the wholeness, the multidimensional nature of who they are. So we're excited about this book getting out there and feel like it really is going to make a wonderful, wonderful impact on people's lives.
I am sure because you two are doing magnificent work. And I mean, we can spend hours talking about this, but our time is limited. I would like to invite you to have people contact you. How can people find you and how they can contact you?
Our website is iconnectthe the number 2, all.com. So I connect to all.com, and our book, Sacred Geometry, The Universal Language of Divine Alignment, it's sold on Amazon and in bookstores. It's getting out there everywhere. So both on bookstores and on our website, you can find out more, and that will redirect you to our YouTube channel and all the different social media where we have distillations about what some of these thoughts are in the book, and we're putting them out, in short little blurbs and talks on YouTube. And we continue to have an ongoing discussion with people about our book on our YouTube channel and different Zoom calls.
Amazing. So, is there anything else, a last thought you would like to leave the audience with?
Well, I want to take it back to where we started with your question to us. And the nature of all this is really about honoring who you are, taking the steps to move beyond the separation and the fear that has colored lives in so many ways. Really look deeper and look at the fabric of universe. Look at who you are and who other people are, and see this brilliant diversity, this brilliant coming together of so many just absolutely extraordinary aspects that life presents us with. And the more that we honor ourselves and each other that way, the more love we generate and the greater that our lives can be.
And because you have 2 of us, you get 2 last thoughts. What fun. Basically what Gail was saying, I think taking it into the understanding that you're not alone. We are in this together. And so many people are opening up to the thoughts that you're sharing about, yes, we have diversity, but it's a strength when we realize we're not alone, because we're building together, we're living together, we're making a difference in the world together. It may be a single person that comes up with the thought, but that thought has little traction until more and more people build themselves around that thought. And the thought that you're sharing is a wonderful, wonderful meme to understand that even though we all look and sound different, that's what needs to come together to build the life that we all are going to build together. And we're not alone in this process.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. Love you both very much. And to you who are watching us today, remember you came to this world because of you were loved, to be loved, and to love one another. Thank you, and until next time. Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.